she thought the house was asleep. Yet across the kitchen, her husband's voice, taut, too late, spilled into the quiet of midnight. For 20 years she trusted him, believed in every gentle word, every promise. But then came a whisper on the line she wasn't meant to hear, a single sentence that unmade everything. It didn't just wound her, it ignited something cold and resolute. Betrayal is never quiet. It demands reckoning. What did he say? Why was she listening? And when the dust settled, lives would be broken under the weight of her decision. One question would echo through what remained of their world. How far will a woman go when trust becomes unbearable? Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. For years, Michael was admired in his community. A man of stature, a husband who wore loyalty like a badge, a father who seemed steady and dependable. To those around him, Michael was the image of success. Sharp in business, respected among friends, the kind of man neighbors trusted. And beside him was Claire, his wife of 2 decades. She was the anchor, devoted, trusting, and willing to sacrifice her own ambitions for the sake of their family. She never imagined that the man she defended in every conversation, the man she built her world around, could be the very one to shatter it. But that night in the kitchen revealed a different Michael, one who whispered to someone else in the shadows. Who was this person on the other end of the line? Why would Michael risk everything? And if Claire was willing to wait, how exactly would she make him pay? Michael and Claire's story began the way many lasting marriages do, unexpectedly, and yet with a sense of inevitability. They met at a college fundraiser, a chance encounter that stretched into hours of conversation. Friends remembered how Michael couldn't stop watching her, how Claire's laughter seemed to soften his usually serious face. Soon after, they became inseparable. Marriage followed, and with it came the picture of stability. Michael built a career in finance, climbing ranks with his trademark confidence, while Claire dedicated herself to raising their children and supporting his ambitions. To the outside world, theirs was a marriage to admire. 2 children in private school, a beautiful home, Sunday services where they sat together in the front pew. Neighbors saw them as solid, enviable, untouchable. Yet beneath the perfect image were subtle cracks, small lies about late meetings, unexplained absences, conversations that Claire brushed aside as stress. She trusted him, wanted to believe in the man she vowed to love. But trust can sometimes be blindness, and hers would soon come at a devastating cost. Because late one night, when she picked up the phone instead of him, she would uncover the secret that changed everything. It was close to midnight when Claire first heard it. She had gone downstairs for a glass of water, the kind of quiet, ordinary act that should have meant nothing. But the silence of the house was broken by a low murmur. Michael's voice carried from the kitchen, hushed, deliberate, almost trembling in its secrecy. Claire froze in the hallway, listening. At first she thought he was working late, another client call. But then the words took shape, words no wife should ever hear. "She'll never see it coming," he whispered into the phone. "Once the accounts are cleared, I'll be gone. She'll have nothing left." Claire's heart pounded as if it were trying to escape her chest. This wasn't just about another woman. It was about erasing her, her sacrifices, her years, her place in the life they built together. She remained silent, letting the call finish, memorizing every phrase. The next morning, Michael moved through the house as if nothing had happened. He poured his coffee, greeted the children, kissed Claire's cheek as though he were the same devoted husband. She responded with quiet nods, her hands steady though inside her blood burned. Every smile he offered felt rehearsed. Every touch felt like a performance for the outside world. Claire said nothing. Not yet. She carried the weight of his betrayal alone, storing every detail. Was it just an affair, or was he plotting something far greater? Her financial ruin, her public humiliation, her complete destruction. To the children, life appeared unchanged. To the neighbors, Michael was still the man they admired. But to Claire, he had become a stranger under her roof, a man whose secrets were unraveling in her hands. And when she dug deeper into his betrayal, she realized it wasn't just another woman. It was far worse. Claire could not afford panic. Panic would make her reckless, and recklessness would expose that she knew. So instead, she chose patience. She began with the small things, quietly checking the pockets of Michael's jackets, scrolling through the call history when he left his phone unattended, noting the sudden cash withdrawals that didn't match the story of business dinners. Each discovery carved deeper into her certainty that the man she trusted was building a life designed to erase her from it. Days turned into weeks, and while Michael performed his charade of loyalty, kisses before leaving for work, casual jokes at dinner, Claire gathered evidence like a prosecutor preparing for trial. One evening, while Michael showered, Claire opened his briefcase. Hidden beneath papers and contracts was a receipt from a hotel just outside the city. The date matched the night he claimed to have been stuck in meetings. Alongside it was a bank slip showing a transfer to an unfamiliar account. Claire took photos of everything, her hands steady even as her chest tightened. This was no ordinary affair. Michael was shifting money, concealing assets, creating a financial trail meant to leave her stranded. She realized then that his betrayal was not only of the heart, it was calculated, deliberate, designed to strip her of every security she had built with him. Yet in front of the children, she remained the same mother, smiling, patient, unwilling to let her fury bleed into their innocence. At church, she greeted neighbors, accepted compliments about what a strong couple she and Michael appeared to be, while inside she fought to keep her composure. Friends envied her life, not knowing she was already living in the shadow of its collapse. And Michael, confident, arrogant, never suspected she was watching, documenting, preparing. Claire's nights became her investigation. She traced phone numbers, memorized passwords, pieced together fragments of conversations. In one email she uncovered, Michael promised someone a future, free of obligations, a life where he could start over without looking back. Obligation, that was how he described 2 decades of marriage, 2 children, a home Claire had fought to hold together. With every revelation, the betrayal cut deeper, but so too did her resolve. She would not confront him unprepared. She would wait, she would build her case, and when the time came, there would be no escape for Michael. And yet, the more she uncovered, the more horrifying the picture became. Michael wasn't simply betraying her with another woman. He was conspiring to dismantle her entirely, aligning himself with people who stood to gain from her downfall. It was a betrayal that reached beyond intimacy, into the very fabric of her survival. Claire realized the man she loved was not only willing to hurt her, but willing to erase her completely. And as the pieces fell into place, one thought became impossible to ignore. The reckoning had only just begun. Claire had uncovered enough to end the marriage quietly, to file for divorce with evidence so damning Michael would be left with nothing. But she didn't want quiet. Quiet would let him slither away, spin stories, charm the neighbors, and build his new life as if she had never existed. No, Michael had carefully plotted her downfall, and Claire would not allow him the dignity of secrecy. The true scale of his betrayal was staggering. Bank accounts drained into hidden funds. Investments moved under shell companies. Conversations suggesting he would frame her for fraud if she ever tried to challenge him. And most chilling of all, messages to the other woman. Not just of love, but of strategy. He spoke of Claire as an obstacle to be removed, a liability to be erased. In his words, she was nothing more than a stepping stone to the life he truly wanted. The night she realized this, Claire sat in the kitchen long after midnight, staring at the evidence spread across the table. Her heart no longer raced. Instead, it was steady, deliberate. Tears would not serve her now. Silence would. A plan began to form, one that mirrored the precision with which Michael had tried to destroy her. She reached out quietly to a trusted attorney, to a close friend in law enforcement, and most importantly, to the family and colleagues Michael believed adored him. Piece by piece, she set the stage for a revelation Michael would never recover from. The confrontation did not happen in their kitchen, nor in the privacy of their bedroom. Claire chose a far more devastating arena, At a family gathering, attended by relatives, business partners, and church elders, she orchestrated his downfall with meticulous care. Dinner plates were half full, conversations warm, when Claire rose from her seat. Her voice was calm, almost gentle, but her words sliced sharper than any scream. She presented the evidence: emails, transfers, hotel receipts, each document projected onto the wall behind her as if the room itself were a courtroom. Gasps filled the air. Whispers spread like wildfire. The mask Michael wore so effortlessly began to crack as his carefully constructed image of the devoted husband and successful businessman collapsed under the weight of undeniable proof. He tried denial first, fumbling excuses, blaming misunderstandings. But Claire had anticipated every word. For every lie, she had a counter. For every attempt to twist the truth, she unveiled another piece of evidence. Then came the final blow, law enforcement stepping into the room, documents in hand, confirming that Michael's financial manipulations were already under investigation. The silence that followed was suffocating. Neighbors stared in disbelief. His colleagues, once respectful, looked away in disgust. Even his parents could not defend him. Michael's face drained of color. The confident man who once believed he could outmaneuver anyone now sat exposed, cornered, powerless. And Claire? She did not raise her voice. She did not weep. She did not rage. She stood in cold, calculated silence, letting the weight of the truth crush him. By the time the gathering ended, Michael's reputation lay in ruins. The truth was undeniable, the mask forever shattered. And as he left that night, flanked by officers and stripped of the admiration he once basked in, one thing became clear: the world had turned against him. But Claire wasn't finished yet. Michael believed the nightmare was over after that disastrous family gathering, that with time, people would forget, that his charm could be rebuilt, that he could salvage what remained. But Claire knew better. What she had unleashed was only the beginning. Financially, she had always appeared to stand in his shadow. Michael was the one with the grand investments, the bold ventures, the expensive suits. But behind the scenes, Claire had ensured her name was on every deed that mattered, her signature on every binding contract, her fingerprints on the assets he had always assumed were his alone. When Michael's accounts were frozen and the investigations deepened, it was Claire who retained legal control of their shared wealth. He had tried to strip her of everything, yet it was she who now held the keys to his empire. With a stroke of a pen, Claire made sure that every property, every car, every account tied to their joint life was out of his reach. Michael didn't just lose his fortune, he watched it slip into the very hands he had tried to crush. But the financial ruin was only part of his undoing. Public humiliation became his daily reality. Newspapers ran headlines about the respected businessman who had gambled his marriage and reputation away. Colleagues distanced themselves, contracts were severed, and doors once wide open to Michael slammed shut in his face. In church, whispers followed him down every aisle. At community gatherings, eyes darted away, and invitations stopped arriving altogether. For a man who thrived on admiration, the silence of abandonment was deafening. And then came the mistress, the woman he had risked everything for, the one he had promised a glittering future. At first, she defended him, standing firm in his corner. But Claire, ever strategic, revealed to her something Michael had never expected, proof that he had planned to discard her as well, using her just as he had used Claire. Bank transfers, hidden messages, backup conversations he thought deleted. To Michael's horror, the mistress confronted him in public, not with devotion, but with venom, exposing him further. He had lost his wife, his wealth, his reputation, and now even the woman he betrayed it all for turned her back on him. And here lay the final twist. Claire's revenge was never delivered through violence or fury. It was not the work of a broken woman, desperate to lash out. It was the careful, deliberate work of silence, patience, and truth. Where Michael had plotted in shadows, Claire had waited in light. Where he tried to destroy her through deceit, she destroyed him with undeniable exposure. The reckoning was complete. As Michael sat alone in a stripped-down apartment, his phone silent, his career in ruins, his family name stained beyond repair, Claire stood taller than ever. Not bitter, not broken, but renewed. She had been betrayed, yes, but she had rewritten the ending on her terms. And as the story closes, the narrator leaves the audience with a haunting reflection. In the end, betrayal may break hearts, but silence, patience, and truth can break legacies. Then comes the final, thought-provoking question, designed to ignite the comments section with debate and emotion. If you were in Claire's place, would you forgive? Or would you unleash the reckoning? As the dust settled on Michael and Claire's story, the question that lingered was not simply about betrayal or even about justice. It was about choice. Claire had chosen patience over panic, strategy over rage, silence over screaming. She had waited until the perfect moment to strike, and when she did, she dismantled Michael's world without lifting a single hand in violence. Some called it justice. They said Michael deserved everything that came to him: the financial collapse, the public humiliation, the loss of the very mistress he had once idolized. They praised Claire for her composure, for refusing to let his betrayal define her, for rewriting the ending on her own terms. But others whispered a different view. They wondered if Claire's silence and calculation were simply another form of cruelty. Was it revenge disguised as justice? Did she destroy him not only for what he did, but also for the satisfaction of watching him crumble? Was it necessary to expose him so publicly, to strip him of everything until there was nothing left? And so, the question turns to you, the audience. What would you have done in Claire's place? Would you have forgiven Michael, choosing to walk away quietly and start fresh, leaving his downfall to his own inevitable mistakes? Or would you, like Claire, have waited, gathered the truth, and unleashed a reckoning so complete that the world itself became the witness to his betrayal? Was justice truly served, or was this revenge taken too far? That is the haunting dilemma at the heart of this story, and it is where we invite you to step in. Tell us in the comments, if you were Claire, how would you have ended this? And while you reflect on that, prepare yourself. Because if you thought Claire's story was shocking, what we have next will leave you speechless. Imagine this: a woman who disappeared without a trace, leaving her husband grieving and rebuilding his life. Years later, just when he believes the past is buried forever, she returns, not as a ghost, not as a memory, but in flesh and blood, standing on his doorstep. And the truth behind her disappearance? It is darker and stranger than anything you could imagine. That is the story coming up in our next video. So if you don't want to miss it, make sure you subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell, and stay with us for the stories that reveal not just betrayal and heartbreak, but the deepest truths about human choices. Because in the end, these aren't just stories. They are mirrors, asking us all one question: what would you do if it were you?